You're listening to an interview that was recorded before the military coup in Myanmar. As many listeners know, after the coup took place, we transformed our mission to respond to the urgent needs at the time. We're now going back through these previously recorded interviews, which largely focus on meditation and the spiritual path, and releasing them now. This is quite a rich conversation which follows, and let's get into that. So really happy that Bhikkhu Pabhassaro has been able to come and join us and make time for this podcast. Really interested to learn more about your monkhood and the things that inspired your monkhood, where you came from. Thanks again for being able to come out here and make time to join us.
Yes, I'm very, very grateful for the invitation and for the opportunity to share a little bit of my life.
Yeah, so let's start at the beginning. I know you're from Poland. I don't know much more than that. So can you set the early stages of your early life and family and childhood?
All right. I was born in southern Poland, and I grew up in a mountainous, beautiful, beautiful scenery, a lot of nature. So let's say the first, I would say, important step in my life was when I was about 12 years old and I got really into music. Basically that, I would say, was the first important thing because I put all my heart, all my attention to it. So everything else started to be pretty much irrelevant.
What kind of music?
It started with hard rock, heavy metal, and that stuff.
American or Polish or something else?
Everything.
Huh.
Mostly American.
Like what bands?
Everything from like Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Metallica. Later on, I actually picked up guitar. So I really put a lot of time, like 6 to 10 hours a day playing. And that was the first, let's say, important thing because I didn't really have the dreams to have a beautiful car or beautiful house. Everything was just one pointed with just one area that was really, really inspiring and interesting.
Why was music that way? What did it bring out in you?
Well, at first it was challenging, especially playing was very, very challenging, and it was very rewarding, really putting a heart into something, one thing, and developing skills. So it is important, that's why I mentioned that, because that's why I started inquiring into meditation. I was about 15 years old, and I just wanted to be aware of everything.
And music made you feel like you wanted to be aware of everything?
I wanted to be aware of everything, every sound, every movement of my fingers, everything. I just wanted to be aware of everything. And that was kind of, I thought as if it's impossible, so I was really inquiring into what kind of tools, what can I learn, what can I investigate, and how to accomplish that impossible quest. So that was the first stage.
And music was what brought you to that desire of wanting to know everything and to have this awareness.
Know everything, I mean more aware of everything.
Right.
Kind of, I didn't know the word mindfulness, but that was the thing that I wanted to develop. But I didn't really know the word, I didn't know any teacher. It just naturally came like, how to really feel more rather than think more, how to feel my fingers, how to feel the wind, how to feel the world rather than think of the world. So if we fast forward, I did start at that time sitting. I did start with different books, like, the Thich Nhat Hanh, the Vietnamese Zen master, or the actually many non-Buddhist books, everything that was available. Psychology, NLP, all sorts of things, everything just trying to accomplish that goal, how to develop concentration and mindfulness, not knowing, of course, the technical terms and names, just how to develop mind, how to develop feeling the world. So that brought me to gradually starting to see, like, there was, let's say, the second important thing was when I was in Kenya with my parents. That's actually, I'm very, very grateful because we traveled a lot with my parents. So when I was about 17, we went to Kenya, and I remember just driving on a Jeep safari, and it's like this, the scene from National Geographic Channel. Everything is perfect. You see the lions and elephants, and it's all really so beautiful and just really astounding. And then you just feel nothing. You just feel like I start to see the thoughts. I start to see thoughts about life in Poland, about my girlfriend at that time, about music, about some other things. And I see, well, actually, to come to that point, to come to that place, it's so difficult for us. It costs so much money. It's really so difficult.
Right.
And here, like, it felt like as if I'm in this orange grove, and I came here to make an orange juice, and I'm not capable of taking the oranges that are just in front of my face, and I'm not able to squeeze them. I realized at that time I lack some very important life skill.
And how old were you at this time?
17.
In Kenya, you were 17, okay.
I already went 2 years into practice at that time, but because I didn't have a kind of very good teacher, so it was just a trials and many mistakes. But it was a very touching and very important moment to see, well, there has to be something that I have not discovered. There has to be something that the education that my friends has not shared with me. That how to actually be able to live in the moment, to experience the moment, to be content with what is, rather than constantly searching for different objects, different things. And here I am with something that is supposed to be a dream come true, with this amazing holiday, and I'm not able to enjoy it. And immediately, all my desires to, to work and to have a lot of money and it is just immediately vanished, because why should I do it if I'm here? I'm already here. This is already the destination, and it just doesn't work. But the music was, again, this one plot, one line that I continued with. So the other important event was 2 years later. I was, at that time I moved from this heavy music into jazz. Afterwards, I still continued with music as kind of the major focus in my life. And I moved from the very heavy music, the heart started to soften, so I started to listen and play more jazz and blues and kind of mellow out. And the important, very, very touching moment was I went to a jazz club, and there was an old piano player. And, you see this guy, like a very old, in his 80s, a grumpy guy, just complaining about every single thing, just like, you wouldn't really want to go close to him. And then this grumpy guy sits in front of the piano, and in a split of a second, he transforms himself into like a 3-year-old child. You see this blazing eyes with the joy and with freshness and just like the red cheeks, and he's playing for 1.5 hours just, and honestly the music doesn't matter. You just see this joy just filling the whole room. And then the concert finishes and he's again the grumpy guy. And that made me to really see what I've been doing. Yes, I can get into music. I can really get very happy, but what happens when I don't have the instrument? What happens when I don't internalize the music in my mind? What happens if I don't listen? How do I treat other people, other objects? Am I really getting happier because of that? Or am I just going into swing of, yeah, this is nice, I really like it, and everything else, I dislike it. This I really want, and the other things, no, I don't want. And that was a very, very strong, really very strong in my heart, because it showed me, yes, I'm interested in what this old guy did, but not with his fingers, but with his heart. How to bring this joy, how to extract this joy and be able to apply it with other objects, with other actions. How can I have open heart to my family, to my friends, to people in the street, to things that are unpleasant, uncomfortable? And I didn't have an answer. And honestly, no one around me had the answer. It took me many, many years to see that what I was searching has been hidden for years in the teaching of the Buddha. He was also trying to find stability with all the unpredictable, changing objects. He was trying to find a joy that is independent, that is not conditioned, and that at that time very immature intention and desire to search for that independence, for that freedom from the conditioned objects, freedom from entanglement, has been really from that moment onwards the primary focus in my life.
The moment onwards after seeing this jazz musician, was that the moment where you would say this drive and search began?
Well, if we trace back, the first thing was really wanting to develop awareness of everything. Then the more mature was seeing how to develop stability with all things. Stability amidst the unstable things and objects. And of course, I wouldn't be able to sort it out without the further unfoldings, without coming here to Asia and being exposed to some really, really valuable spiritual friends.
So you were 17 years old, you'd been interested in music, you went to Kenya and had this realization while you were there in Africa with your family. You were reading books on all subjects you mentioned, Buddhist, non-Buddhist, looking to develop a greater sense of mindfulness. Even if you don't know the words, you have a sense of the concept. This juncture in your life, where did you find to go? Where did you find to practice?
At that time, actually, when I met this old musician, I was already in a spiritual group, in a Hindu spiritual group. So I took the 5 precepts, and I was practicing the samatha practice, and that was kind of the calmness meditation. And the part of the practice was the determination of 3 hours of sitting. So that kind of aligned with seeing what he's doing, that there has to be something more. at that time, I'm sharing it right now, how I see, like, I see there were those immature, important moments, but the rest was just a flow of conditions. When I came to Asia, actually, I didn't really intend to seek a spiritual path. I came here as an English teacher.
Here meaning where?
To Thailand.
Oh.
So I came basically for work. But then in the culture, in the simplicity of people in the northeastern Thailand, I started to find more clues, like a detective trying to sort out, okay, I have those small things that happen in my life and I don't know really what to do. And then I see those people, like, they have very little and they are much more content. Their life is much more aligned with what I'm searching, what the heart is searching. And then when it really connected, like, I didn't really like reading in my life. Apart from, yes, I graduated university, and I wasn't bad at school, but just for casual reading was not really my thing. But as soon as I connected with the Buddha's teaching in Thailand, I read like 200 books.
So before you went to Thailand, you weren't necessarily interested in the Buddha's style of discourse or teaching. It was a general spiritual and personal development, and it was being in Thailand and searching for clues that led you to the Buddhist books and Buddhist teachings.
Well, because many of the books that are kind of spiritual, they have references to Buddha's discourses and Buddha's teachings, but they come into, they're extracted metaphors and similes, and not necessarily, we don't really know, oh, this is from the Buddha, this is from some other tradition.
You could say it was Buddhist inspired.
Exactly. When I was in Thailand, it was mostly like Ajahn Chah, Buddhadasa, and also like Mahasi, Sadhu Pandita. So then it just opened with every teacher, everything that is in English and is related to Dhamma. It just started to flow in.
So you started to get access to these books.
Oh yeah, almost everything that is available. Books, podcasts, or like recordings, videos, audio. That it just started to get really, really interested.
And how old were you at this time?
At that time, I was 22.
Okay, right. And coming from Poland, what was how were you brought up religiously? What was your family's background?
My family is Catholic, so they are quite traditional in this matter. When I was 12, I kind of, I stopped going to church. I lost faith. And then when this happened, when I was 15, I kind of started to just, I didn't really ask myself what is my religion. I was more interested in developing the skill, the ability to see, to feel the world. And then about 19 of age, I connected with this Hindu calm meditation practice.
In Poland?
In Poland, yes. Yeah, to give you one more piece of the puzzle to finish the background part. So I graduated finance and, I forget how it's called. Finance and accounting. Oh, yes. I worked at IBM for a year with an office job, and, it just didn't fit to the picture. But it was a valuable experience. I had a really good teachers at the university, all those people who work for the government, in Ministry of Finance, etc. And that was another kind of clue, so showing that, yes, those people are famous. They've written many have written 100 or 200 books. They are also in the European Parliament, and they're not happy. It's very clear. So I tried for a year, and I knew this is not that. I graduated the university, I worked for a year. No, it doesn't work. Let's move on. I came to Thailand, and teaching English was another step, so to speak.
What led to that decision? Why did you decide to go to uproot yourself and go to Thailand and try a new profession?
Because for me it was not difficult to stay as an accountant, but I just felt it's not that. It's not it. I do feel much better to connect with people, not to stay in a small office and just I could do that job easily, but just it didn't feel right. It didn't feel. I felt that I can do so much more with my life, and I didn't want to waste that. And teaching English felt like, because I had a lot of teachers in my family, my mother, grandmother, and grandfather. So as I went to Thailand, and as soon as I went into the classroom, it really felt quite good.
You were teaching at like schools or private?
I started in the small schools in the rural area. Then I did the certificate from Cambridge, and then I moved to basically I had students from Ministry of Commerce, from schools, children, adults, really kind of a vast array of really diverse students.
And so around this time you started reading these books on Buddhist literature, reading about some of the great teachers and traditions of Burma and Thailand, and I imagine that had quite an effect on you.
Exactly. And I was quite immersed in Thai culture. I came to a point where I had a choice. I'd been offered a very good job at a university in northern Thailand, and I had a choice to go to a Buddhist monastery and to teach English to the monks. And at that time I stopped for a week, and I just felt, you know what, this is going to be the most important decision in your life. I knew it is going to be important. I didn't know at that time that it's ordination, but I knew going to university is really good, really great opportunity. It was a very nice job. But I felt, I really want to practice more. I don't know what. I don't know how.
Right, you didn't have a teacher, you didn't have a tradition.
I mean, I did have some concentration and some happiness, but I didn't know the next step. I didn't know why to practice. And then suddenly I went to the Buddhist monastery, and then I continued further, just exploring almost majority of the materials that are available in English, and more and more moving from reading like Ajahn Chah or Sayadaw this into the suttas. And that was really like so refreshing, and so really felt like, this is it. I finally enjoy reading, enjoy like truthfully with a pure heart.
So maybe the sutta should be required reading in a Western curriculum, get students to enjoy it.
It would be probably interesting.
Yeah. So
yes.
What was the difference for you, if you can say a little more about that, going from Ajahn Chah, Mahasi Sayadaw, those kinds of books, into directly reading the exact suttas of the Buddha? What did you find so different about those experiences?
I mean, reading the books of the Ajahns were good in the beginning, and I continued that throughout my first year of monkhood. But first, I finished almost everything that was available.
Right.
There was just nothing more. And then I noticed that it's like they contain the same message, but they have a little bit of additional taste. It's like you have a coffee with a coconut flavor, and with a walnut flavor, and with a hazelnut flavor, basically, I wasn't interested in the flavor. I wanted to know what is the essence, what is the really, what brings the strength, the effect of coffee. And as we know, the coffee brings you awake.
Right. So you moved at this point. You moved to reading the suttas of the Buddha. You're at the Buddhist monastery teaching English, I assume, as a lay person.
Yes. However, at that time, I stayed there for 6 months, and it just happened. Just, oh, would you like to ordain? Yes. Actually, I didn't think about it, but that it just felt, yes, this is something that just sounds right at this time.
And what monastery was that?
Actually, it was a small no-name monastery. It was supposed to be a temporary ordination, and I ordained, and then I was sent to a small forest monastery on the border of Myanmar and Thailand. Very poor area. And maybe that was what really brought the first strong inspiration in the monastic path. Because the people there were so poor. The areas were... and it was not easy. We had very little. But somehow there was this... really... we had a lot of time to practice. 12 hours a day, suddenly all this kind of inspiration to practice, and now, I don't have a job, and I'm here, I don't have the mobile reception, and I'm here in the forest, and suddenly I can just sit, and in the just 2-3 days after ordination, it was very, very easy to feel very comfortable in the sitting posture, to really find a lot of joy, and the time was passing actually as if no time. And there were a lot of difficulties, sickness, it's a very poor and very difficult area to live in, but this inspiration from seeing people in the village, seeing their generosity, their support, and those moments of joy of the sitting meditation, it all were just by the end of the first month I knew, okay, yes, this is it.
And how are you figuring out how to actually sit? Because it sounds like up to this point you still didn't have so much of a teacher or a technique or a tradition. You had some background with the Hindu practice, you were reading books, now suddenly you're a monk. How are you figuring out what to do for those 12 hours on your own in the forest?
Well, by that time, because I spoke with the monks when I was teaching them English, they helped me to realize that the Hindu practice, I was actually doing the kasina practice, and that I was actually developing samatha. So even though I didn't really know the names, etc., but I had, back in Poland, I had a consistent practice of 3 hours a day of sitting. So at that time I was 8 years into samatha practice, even though I didn't have it in the perspective of why and where does it lead, but I was just holding on to that because it was really joyful and it brought a lot of happiness.
So that's what you continue doing into your early monkhood?
No. When I came to Thailand, and while reading those books, I switched from that into breath meditation, but the result was the same. Light and bliss. And it was kind of very natural at that time. And as soon as the renunciation and ordination procedure, as soon as the morality and was established, and basically the matters of the household life abandoned, it was very strengthened. It was just that was not a problem. Basically, the sitting was not a problem at all. And I skipped this part. There were many things happening. Before I ordained, I did have a first Vipassana teacher. It was Ajahn Pramod Pamojo, you might have heard. So I used to go to him, and then I met two monks, and two young monks who were practicing the forest Tudanga style, meaning every day 3 a.m. they would wake up and 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. practice, 5 a.m. prepare to go to the village, 5:30 go Pintapat. And
That's the alms round.
Yes, alms round. And then going back from alms round, eating one meal a day and practicing all day. And I met them and I felt like what they're doing is impossible. It's just like, how can you do it? It seemed like, for me, they looked like some superheroes, honestly, at that time. I came to this Vipassana teacher, I see those two monks, and they are just so impressive. And it took me this was actually 2 months before the ordination, and then 3 months ahead, I was doing this impossible thing, and I felt like, how is it possible? How me? Like, I'm waking up in the morning, and it's cold, it's early, but I'm just covered in 3 blankets in the mountains, and I'm happy, and I'm super happy, and then super joyful, and that was just, the faith was just filling the whole heart and the whole body. And then I realized, oh, actually, they're not special. I'm not special. There are thousands, tens of thousands of forest monks in Thailand. And at that time, I just realized, this is what I've been looking for. These are the real skills, real abilities. And the strength, the inner strength that lies from that, from simple things. Simplifying the requisites, simplifying life, abiding in accordance with the monastic rules, and doing little. I mean, doing what is necessary, not involving with things that are not necessary, but at the same time being diligent in what we are doing. And I was really mind blown how much more we can have energy, how much more we can develop, how much more we can see, how much more we can understand. And very quickly, meeting those forest monks, especially those who do have a good practice, who practice 20, 30, 40 years in that kind of stable manner, I just realized I've never met anyone who's even remotely close anywhere in Europe. All those famous teachers at the university, all my jazz teachers, all the famous musicians, it's just something like completely different level. And so the faith was so strong. And as we know from Buddha's teaching, faith naturally brings effort. So it just started naturally flow.
And that was all happening, that kind of practice, that kind of awareness, that understanding was all developing in your first few months of monkhood in this poor mountain region of northeastern Thailand, was it?
This is northwestern
Thailand, right, with the Myanmar border.
Right on the border.
Right. So this is happening, all this is happening just in your first few months of putting the robes on. Exactly.
And then I also I came back to my monastery, and then I went for a Goenka retreat. I was told about it. Okay, let's try. But coming with this inspiration, it was like holidays in a positive way.
So this was like your first structured meditative experience, right?
I mean, at that time I already had exposure to some of the really famous and greatest teachers in Thailand, but to be to the Burmese style of a meditation retreat, that was the first meditation retreat, so to speak. And that was the first kind of clear transition from samatha to vipassana.
Oh, I see. Right. So up to that point, you'd still been doing some form of anapana practice, or anapana, kasina, samatha.
Yes. Yes. And well, the funny thing was the Goenka experience was quite positive. Like, I didn't sleep for 3 days, just. And then after the retreat, I actually went to the monastery of the Goenka teacher because he was a monk in Thailand, Ajahn Charun. I spent a couple of weeks with him, and he was also giving like additional instructions, more personalized instructions. And yeah, that's how it kind of started to put into the puzzles into, like, put the pieces into the whole picture.
Right. So this was after this Goenka Vipassana retreat, you went to the monastery of the abbot, who was also a Goenka teacher on the course,
Exactly.
and he had a monastery where further Vipassana instruction and practice was taking place by the monks and lay people there, and you stayed there for some time.
Exactly.
How was that?
It was very positive. It was very a good experience, and I did quite a few of those Goenka courses. But it was, again, this was one of the experiences in those in this first year.
And what did you find the difference was between a non-monastic meditation center where these instructions are being followed in a 10-day structure, and going to a monastery where the same practice is being held, but it doesn't quite have the same day 1, day 2, day 3?
I mean, I do see many positive things from the day 1, day 2, day 3 attitude of the Goenka practice, and still for most of the lay practitioners, I feel it's very, very good and very suitable. However, the thing is that we need to learn how to practice with every object. It was still a bit constricting. It was great, but how do we apply it with every conditions? How do we apply it when we speak with people? How do we apply it when we have something to do? How do we apply it when there are more some really, really big challenges that we have to overcome, and we cannot just merely observe the body. There has to be some action, and that whereas I find this method very interesting, but I still felt this alone is not the whole package. And having read the suttas at that time, I knew that it's valuable. It's part of the Satipatthana, but there's much more. There's much more to apply. So I also went to Wat Pananachat and to the Thai forest tradition, and basically to give the more overview, so we don't kind of dissect every single week and moment. So I did spend basically half of my time in the Thai forest tradition and half of my time in the Burmese Mahasi tradition.
In Thailand?
In Burma.
Oh, okay. So you were going back and forth between the countries at this point?
Yes, sometimes I would stay longer in Thailand for a year or two. Sometimes I would come to Burma.
So you were spending time in the Thai forest tradition in Thailand, while also then going to Burma and spending time in the Mahasi tradition over in Burma. And the reason I ask that is because, of course, the Burmese Mahasi tradition is very alive and well in Thailand. So I was curious about which strain of the Mahasi schools you were in.
Yeah, I also tried in Thailand, but basically that was my journey in the past over 7 years. And yeah, I found it actually very beneficial. I felt in my heart that all those places are very good, but I didn't really feel that is fulfilling my intention. And I felt as if something is missing, and that something in the early days of monkhood was not clear, but later it became clear. And it's a very simple question. Why? Why do we do it? Why do we go for a meditation retreat? Why do we take robes? Or why did the Buddha leave the palace? And bringing these questions in the heart brought completely different transition with the depth of aspiration and with the depth of really renunciation in the heart. You know, the Buddha was not interested in learning a method, a technique. He was not interested in learning the jhanas, however blissful and peaceful they are.
Mm-hmm.
The Buddha was constantly going, here, is that bringing the fulfillment of my intention? Is that really stable? Is that really bringing the cessation of suffering? So he started at the palace. It doesn't work. He moved on. He went to one teacher, learned a very deep calm, the 7 jhanas, and he checked his heart. It doesn't work. He moved on. He went to his second teacher. Again, he outdid his teacher. He finished the whole samatha practice, learned the 8 jhanas. He was offered the whole meditation center. He was offered disciples. But he knew this doesn't work. He became the master of the ascetic practices. He had his 5 followers, Panchavagya. But he also checked his heart. He see, well, it doesn't work. I'm the best ascetic in the world, and it doesn't work. And he finally decided to abandon even that. And at some point, asking those questions and really seeing, why do we do that? Because I felt it's a bit like, because we can speak about traditions and it's very good and very important. But it seems like you go to one monastery and you're offered with a spoon. And, every person is offered with a spoon and start using the spoon. And then the other monastery, everyone is offered with a fork and using the fork. The other monastery, every person is offered chopsticks. And yet another monastery, and people are using hands. And of course they are supposed to eat something. But if the focus is on the chopsticks, spoon, fork, or the hand, but it's not on the dish itself, what is the nutriment? Why are we taking the spoon, and what nutriment are we putting to our heart? If that intention is very clear, if we know that we are practicing the path of renunciation, if we know that we are practicing the path of purification, if we know that we practice from freedom, from suffering, then those things, whether we use spoon, fork, whether we use hands or chopsticks, they are tools to support, to bring nutriment to the heart. And that has been the most important shift in the way to see the practice, see the traditions, rather than trying to see which is better, which is worse. But how to really see oneself as a monastic, as a son of the Buddha. See one's teacher as the Buddha. See one's teacher as Dhamma. And trying to connect with that teaching. Of course, having more experienced Kalanamitta, good spiritual friends. Of course, referencing to the suttas. Of course, checking and cross-checking with other monastics. And that becomes something very priceless, really. When this path, the monastic path, is really led in the right way, in accordance with the teaching, with the suttas, with the Dhamma, with the truth, then there is nothing superior.
So when you started to make this shift, theoretically, I follow what you're saying in terms of wanting to. I understand the metaphor that you used about the food and the instrument that's used and the attachment to the instrument, signifying as well like an attachment to the method or the tradition or something like that, and then missing the actual nutriment that's in front of you. If you can go one step further, I think what I'm missing is the practicality of that. What does that mean in a practical sense? As a meditator, as someone working, how does that shift in thinking affect the way that you're approaching practice or actually engaging in practice?
Well, the message is simple. I don't want to profess that, let's say, Mahasi is better than other, then Ajahn Chah is better than other, then Panditarama is better than other, Shuomin is better than other. They all show tools. And it is not in the tools, but in the intention. Why are we using the tools? What are we using the tools for? Let's say if someone is really dedicated, very clear with his path, even as a layperson, but he knows that he is practicing, he is really developing wisdom. If he's really clear with his own heart, then those methods can really click and align and help. But if we are not reminded about this fact, then we can just waste a lot of time.
And how to be reminded by it? Are you suggesting like a self-questioning? You had mentioned you'd use some prompts like, why am I practicing? Why am I doing this way? What is my purpose in meditation at this moment? There are teachers that advocate a kind of self-questioning prompts that activate the mind. Is practically speaking, is that what you're getting at, or is it something more?
Well, honestly, what I found is really very, 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 very helpful is to have good friends. Whether he is a 40 Wasa teacher, or he's a 20 Wasa teacher, or he's your fellow monastic, but if you feel that this person is really doing it, and he's here along you in living form, that is what works. I don't feel that in modern times, unless someone has really amazing merit and parami, that there are probably very few people who can do it, who can really practice correctly and effectively on their own. But with the support, as I shared, with cross-checking with one another, and deep, deep sincerity and humility, then I do feel that it is certainly possible to bring this path to fruition.
So for you, the Dhamma friendships are the most important part of your practice?
Yes and no. Yes, it is very important, and I could say most important. But the Dhamma friendships with a wise friend, I have friends with whom we can spend days or weeks in silence.
That's rare.
And it's very clear. We know what is our purpose very clearly. We are not meeting to chit-chat. If we meet, we share our experience. I've been very blessed, and some of the monks, or not necessarily monks, but some of the friends I met over the past years, some are very, very, very skilled in the samatha meditation. Some are very skilled in vipassana. Some are very skilled in the forest dwelling. And I try to learn from. I try to see potentially every being in my life as a teacher. If that is my supporter who's really sincere and very generous, I see it as a teacher. I just open the heart, and I'm just so grateful because I met some really amazing people, really so generous, so loving and compassionate, and being able to appreciate a spoon of rice, being able to appreciate rope, and being very sincerely grateful not only for the material requisite, but seeing the goodness in others people's actions. That is a very, very crucial part of our monastic training. And then when we have friends, like I shared about those two very, very disciplined Thai monks, they inspired me. And honestly, they are not monks anymore. But at that time, they were just this spark of inspiration that still lives in my heart, that I nourish and I nurture and keep on marching with that inspiration. And there have been some really great teachers sharing their experience of formal meditation or Vinaya or Abhidhamma, all the factors. So I try to, the way I see the spiritual friendship is the opening of the heart and being grateful to every single being that has supported me so far. Since I became a monk, just the gratitude to my parents and the way we connect has completely transformed. And feeling how grateful I am to them because of how much difficulties they have to go through to bring up a child. How much difficulty it is for parents to support a child. It's not 1 week, it's not 1 month. It's like 18, 20 years. And there's a lot of work, a lot of money, a lot of patience, a lot of endurance, a lot of compassion, a lot of forgiveness. And if we see, of course, a lot of suffering for them, because we all make mistakes, we all make them angry. And seeing that, how much trouble it brings, yet they do have compassion, they do have patience, they do have forgiveness, they do support. That just opens the heart. Oh, wow. The gratitude is just the genuine feeling, not just a thought, but the genuine feeling that just expands the heart. And it is not difficult, it's actually very natural from that gratitude to open up into metta, into loving kindness, into karuna, compassion, or mudita, altruistic joy. Gratitude that is cultivated by being attentive and seeing all those causes and conditions. Parents, people who are good to us over the years, and also those people who cause trouble, who hurt us. You know, I'm very happy because if my life was perfect back in Poland, I would have never gone to Asia. But because of those imperfections, it was yet another condition, yet another push to move forward, seeing it doesn't work. It's not it.
And you mentioned coming from a Catholic background when you started to get interested in Buddhism, when you ordained originally with intentions for it to be temporary, and then as you continued wearing the robes and it was clear it wasn't temporary, how did your parents and your family respond to this?
So, when I became a monk, sorry, because there's a lot of details that,
Sure.
and to put everything in words. When I became a monk, I invited my brother 3 months before that.
Mm-hmm.
He came and he ordained with me
Right.
at the same time in the same monastery.
Interesting. Younger or older brother?
Older brother. So before that, he trained as a yoga teacher. He came, he ordained with me, and we spent almost a year together. And then he had to go back.
As monks, you were both ordained for a year.
We were both ordained for a year.
Interesting.
So that was, again, my big cause of gratitude. If he did not ordain with me, or had he not ordained with me, then it would be difficult. But because he ordained, then at least I could, when he came home, it's like the parents were, okay, at least we have Michael back, so okay, you can stay. At least we accomplished half of our intention.
You just have one sibling?
Yes.
Yeah, right.
But it was the beginning, yes, and again, I'm very grateful to my brother for that. But over the years, my parents just started to see that it works. It just works. Whatever you're doing, it works. It just makes you more happy, and it makes you kind of more pleasant to be with.
And they saw that change in you.
They saw that change, then they felt that change, and as I shared briefly a few moments ago, that our relationship actually unfolded in a much more natural way because of monkhood, because of the practice, because of having space in the heart to really appreciate everything they did. And of course, everything I shared a moment ago, it sounds very beautiful, but it is a result of all this kind of forest practice, mindfulness, satipatthana. I could go into details of that, but we would spend here probably a long, long time.
Yeah, so I definitely realized that in the limited time that we have to talk about the depth of experience that you went through, instruction, the effect it had on you, that's a little bit challenging to do. I do have some questions generally to kind of learn the broad strokes. Actually, one of the things I'm interested in is your time in Burma and Thailand. Funny enough, it seems that a lot of meditators and monks, even though these cultures and countries are right next to each other, few really spend time in equal places. It seems like you have more the Burmese yogis and the Thailand yogis, and not so much crossover. You've spent a lot of your time in Thailand and Burma. So I have some questions about that. The first one is just, what are the differences that you noticed in the cultures and the monasteries and the practice?
Well, I wouldn't say that I have equal understanding of both cultures. I lived in Thailand before, and I speak the language. And basically also the monastic life in Thailand is a bit more open. Even if we stay in very restrained monasteries with strict vinaya, but it kind of feels more open. Whereas my experience in Burma, I have not traveled anywhere. My greatest travel destination was Shuedagon Pagoda, even though I've been here 20 times or more.
So you've never been outside of Yangon?
Yeah, Bago or some like Mobi, these places.
Just about an hour or two north of Yangon.
Every time I come to Myanmar is airport and some meditation center, lockdown, go back to airport.
Why do you think that is, that you've spent time traveling around Thailand but not around Burma?
Well, when I come to Myanmar is in very, very specific intention. So I had a lot of invitations, but kind of when being in the meditation center, when you're in this practice mood, and then someone says, "Do you want to go to Bagan?" It's like, no, I don't want to go anywhere. Whereas in Thailand, it's more of a necessity.
Oh, why's that?
Kind of when you arrive in Bangkok and your monastery is in the other side of the country, or even 200-300 kilometers away, you have to somehow get there. And sometimes it just naturally unfolds that you sleep somewhere on the way, or you walk for a couple of miles. And even staying in the monasteries, there's sometimes, like if we stay at a Thai forest monastery, we often go as a group to another forest monastery. Or there are some hermitages. So that is a bit different. And also, when it comes to the practice and the difference in the practice, Myanmar practice and the modern Myanmar practice is much more structurized. Let's say the PAOK method everything according to Visuddhimagga, the 4 jhanas with the 40 kamatanas, everything according to scriptures, everything step by step. You go to Mahasi, you follow the 7 Visuddhi also, you have to go through the 16 Vipassana jhanas, and everything is also step by step with precision. Okay, you separate mind and body. What does it mean? How you do it? How do you observe 4 elements? So everything is very, very specific and precise.
I guess Goenka as well would fall into that kind of structure.
A bit, although I haven't found that level of precision in the...
Right.
But there is also structure.
Because it is for lay people, so it has a slightly different intention. It's a more modified version of how incredibly detailed something like Mahasi or Paok are.
Yes. You can, with Goenka method, easily you can develop the same depth, but it's not kind of explicitly explained in this manner. So I found it very helpful to see, it really humbled me in the beginning.
And of course, Mogok too. You can't leave Mogok out. Mogok is probably the top when you're talking about structure and theory. That's the top of the list.
I didn't have much experience. I couldn't click with that. So I don't have much experience with Mogok.
It's hard to find an English teacher too. With Mogok, It's the number one Burmese tradition, but for a foreigner, it could be inaccessible with the language.
Yes, I heard about it. I had many good, but I just couldn't, as you say, I didn't have a good introduction to it. I can speak from, I also don't like to speak from like secondhand knowledge.
Sure.
I can speak from Paok because I spent some time there in Thailand and in Burma, and also of Mahasi. So they are much more precise, much more structurized. And Thai tradition is just the opposite. There is a structure, but the structure is related to discipline. And discipline apart from the...
Monastic discipline.
Also monastic, but it's not only the 227 rules of Patimokkha, but the way of restraint, the structure of the monastery. So, like, my favorite monastery, there's also... pretty strict in Thailand. What Bunyawat is, we have, for example, we have cloths, and you have one cloth that we use for cleaning the Buddha statue, one cloth that we use for cleaning the table, one cloth that we use for cleaning the furniture, and they are signed in Thai, and you have to take the cloth and use it just for this thing. We clean together for 2 hours a day. Every afternoon we meet, and there's this very, very strong discipline that is applied in actions, and that is just it's completely different.
Do you find that kind of practice in Myanmar monasteries?
I haven't.
I haven't either.
I haven't. Even Paok has monastic discipline, but it is not at all. It's different.
Nothing
it's just
like
different.
That. Yeah.
So I found it. I found it really great, because being a Westerner, where someone tells you have to do it like this and period, no question asked.
That's refreshing.
Then immediately, what the Western minds say, no, I know better. So over the years, to cut this Western conditioning and to be able to surrender and to actually see that if you're able not to resist anything, they say you come at 3 o'clock. If you start working at 2:59, it's wrong. Because you're overeager. You want to show that you're better. So immediately cut. 3 o'clock. Start. And there's a lot of working with diligence and effort based on really the physical activities, cleaning, attending to your requisites. And that comes to the previous sharing. If that is supported with the intention, you know that you are here to cut the defilements, you are here for liberation, then that structure is just so wonderful.
And you don't feel that structure at Myanmar monasteries?
We can go back to Myanmar monasteries. There are other good and bad sides of both.
Sure.
I'm just sharing, if we have this intention, then this structure is wonderful. If we not,
Right, sure.
It's a torture.
And I didn't mean that as a value judgment. I just meant as a point of information, the structure that you're describing at the Thai monasteries, you don't feel that same sort of structure and discipline at Myanmar monasteries.
I mean, as I shared, I have been to just a handful of places in Burma. There might be places like that. But to the point of those that are well known, I haven't met this kind of practice, this kind of Tamayut Ajahn Chah forest practice, then that I found, that is the experience I had in Thailand. That is the value I see in Thailand. And the reason I shared it is also very simple. So if that is supported with the intention of, you know that you're coming to monastery to surrender, to really check your heart and work with your heart and abandon defilements, then every single thing that triggers your heart is your friend. If someone tells you, you have to do like that, yes, Bhante, of course, Bhante. And then it's a great support. If you don't have this intention, if someone tells you, you have to do like that, shut up, I will not do it. No, I know better. So immediately, if this intention is not there, then you're just wasting time because there's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of reactions. But again, if the intention is clear, if we know why we do that, that's why this system is mostly, in my humble estimation, for monastics. I don't really see so much yogis in Ajahn Chah monasteries.
Right.
But for those who are really, okay, I really want to cut the defilements, I'm really, whatever it takes, how many years, how much effort, but I will not follow my past habits. I will really work with my own heart and see any challenge, any obstacle. Then the practice is not structured, but it unfolds naturally with all those challenges, with all the discomforts, with all the difficulties. And then it's really solid. That's how you have all those, Kubajans, all those famous Thai teachers, and you see their spirit like a fighter. They're really solid. Of course, Lumpu Man being the foremost that we know in the past century. So again, if that comes with the right intention, it's perfect. And
so you see the Thai monasteries, and we should actually specify these are Thai forest monasteries. Thai forest monasteries themselves are a reaction to the Thai Orthodox Buddhism. They're quite different and quite distinct from the Orthodox nature of how Thai Buddhism has been carried out. But of these Thai forest monasteries, you see them developing a more of a structure in the institution and the discipline, and the Burmese monastery developing more of a structure in the meditation instruction and practice. Would that be correct?
To simplify, yes. Of course, there is a meditation instruction, but usually, even if the teacher is really accomplished and really wise, he will say as little as possible and let you to sort out. And honestly, irregardless which tradition,
you're talking
irregardless now for Burma, Thailand, irregardless, our best teacher is always the First Noble Truth, is always suffering. And those teachers, those forest teachers, they have this understanding. So they have compassion to not to give their hand too often, but just let you suffer. It sounds cruel, but it is an act of compassion. If someone is really dedicated, if they see you can do it, to let you push through your limits, be patient, be endure, and only when it's the ripe and mature moment to offer you a drop of clarity, a drop of help.
That reminds me of the story when Ajahn Sumedho was a young monk with Ajahn Chah, and he was being asked to do some menial task. I don't remember what it was, something, filling a hole, emptying a hole, filling it back up on a hot day. And he was just walking around being frustrated and angry and full of negativity and just kind of stewing in that. And then at one point, Ajahn Chah came up to him. I might be misquoting parts of it, or I'm paraphrasing, of course, but my memory of it is Ajahn Chah came up to him and said, this suffering that you're obviously feeling, is this suffering here in this monastery, in this place? Because if it is, it's a very simple solution. You just have to leave here and you'll be free of that suffering. Or is this suffering inside you? Are you carrying it with you? Because if that's the case, then anywhere you go, it's not really going to matter. And that was one of the transformative moments in his young monkhood, to realize the internal nature of this suffering. So it makes me think of that story. And as a follow-up, I'm also wondering is, I have much less experience at Thai forest monasteries. I did stay at one once for a couple of months, and I've read quite a bit from the Ajahns. One of the features that I've heard as a teaching style of the Thai forest tradition, especially from Bhikkhu Thanisaro, has talked about it with his teacher, I think Ajahn Lee it was, is this style of indirect communication and the role and the importance. This reminds me of what you said about only giving as little as possible, a nugget at a time at the right moment, just to drop when you need it. But this sense of indirect communication, which puts the onus on the practitioner to discover and respond to things on their own, which I wouldn't say that's not a part of the Burmese tradition, but it seems like and I'd like to get your take on it in terms of the Thai forest tradition, it certainly doesn't seem to play as great a role here in this country as what I've heard about from the Thai forest stories.
Yeah, so again, your sharing from Ajahn Sumedho and Ajahn Chah is really spot on. It's really, it doesn't matter whether we are monks, whether we stay in this monastery or that monastery, but this realization that, it's not the hole that you're digging that is creating anger, it's the heart. And that is, it doesn't matter. Those realizations come in Thailand and in Burma. Mm-hmm. In Thai monasteries, it is encouraged to observe other monks who we believe they have superior qualities and learn from their experience as well. Mm-hmm. Let's say you have your Ajahn and you observe what he's doing, why is he doing, and you're trying to sort that out. And that, for some people, is very effective. For some people, it works. In monasteries where I stayed in Burma, it is more about self-restraint in a different manner. So you don't really observe other monks. You don't look at them, like in Mahasi or even at Palok. You do your thing and you return to your kuti.
Right.
And in this way, that's why I shared earlier metaphor. There's no right or wrong method. I feel very, 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 very blessed that I could try both. See the benefits of one, see the benefits of another. Because when I stay for 6 months or 1 year in Burma, when I return to Ajahn Chah Monastery, I see all those past mistakes that I was blind to.
Because by being in those different cultures.
Being in a different culture, and also because here, staying, let's say, and doing this formal practice, sitting, walking, and slowing everything down, and suddenly going back to Thai monastery when you have to move fast. You have to just go and just, like, really go with this. And that is kind of, these are two different ways, but they're not explicit. If we have the deeper, if we have more perspective on the Buddha's teaching, they're not explicit at all. They are manifestation of the same practice, and they are so supportive to one another. I feel if I had only one of those, again, I don't encourage everyone that it has to be like that. No, maybe for some people, go to one monastery, stay there for a month or 2 or 3, and it's enough for them to unfold a very deep and beautiful practice. For me, having this, I like to see it as how we work with gold. If you work with gold and if you put it into a hot fire for too long, is it good? Probably not. So you have to put it in fire and then work with water and then again with fire and then with water. And that's how you can remove the impurities from gold. And finally, you have this refined gold that is free from impurities, or at least partially free from impurities. And you can take this gold, this malleable gold, and put in whatever you want to do. And that contrast of having here a very strong disciplined practice and then suddenly having disciplined practice but in a completely different attitude. They're both part of self-restraint. They're all developing purification of conduct, but from different angles, different sides.
Even when they appear contradictory at times.
Yes, exactly. Externally, they seem contradictory, but internally, they're developing the same qualities.
Right. I'm thinking of the Thai Forest monastery I spent time with. And one of the methodologies there was they served one meal a day, and it was encouraged to eat the meal basically as fast as possible, with the idea being that the faster you ate, the more it was a sign that you weren't enjoying your food, that you weren't spending time with it, that you were getting it over with. And if you lingered, and when I say fast, I don't mean like, don't spend an hour eating, try to spend 25 minutes. It was really felt like less than 10 minutes to eat your one meal of the day. And that was, and to do this as part of the practice, not just as a blind marathon, but to do it as part of the practice and understanding that you're not developing a liking or a relationship with the food. So get it over with. And it's interesting to contrast that with Mahasi, where it's the absolute opposite, where eating fast is an immediate sign to the teachers and the fellow students that you're not being mindful, that you don't know what you're doing, that you're just an animal just trying to get down as much as possible, that this is you're not taking this eating time as part of the practice. You're just performing a perfunctory motion to get back into something formal, and that slow eating and breaking down the bite and the food and the mind states that accompany it, and that level of understanding is part and parcel of really understanding and internalizing the practice. And I'm sure there's more examples like that, but this is very interesting to see on face value. Eat as fast as you can, eat as slow as you can.
Exactly.
Both with an intention of seeing the whole act of eating food, of not eating for enjoyment or like an animal, but to come out of this liking of food. One does it fast, one does it slow.
Yes, it's a great example of the difference. And I can tell you for monastics, because being a junior monk, apart from finishing the meal, you also have to finish a meal before the senior monk that you're attending to.
Right.
So sometimes it would be 8 minutes. And you have to immediately clean your bowl, or at least leave the bowl aside, clean all the spit-in tissues and all the stuff, and then be ready to attend to the Ajahn who's just about to finish his meal, then take all his stuff, then with the two hands, like with the two sets of bowl and spit-in, then you go to the washing area, and everything is in this rushed manner.
So you have 8 minutes to eat your one meal of the day.
Exactly. And to break it apart now, what is the... If you do it, you can do it with the perception of asubha, meaning developing disgust and really seeing how repulsive the food is. It is possible. But it is not possible in 8 minutes' time to break apart food into 4 elements and see it moment by moment, like with Mahasi style.
Right.
For example, in the time of Panditarama, when some of me and my friends, we practice at Panditarama, we would eat 2 to 3 hours.
One meal.
And it was not more than more food.
Right.
It was really exactly the same contrast you're saying, to slow down to a point to really see arising and passing of materiality, see arising and passing of intention, and to take the heart, really like a stable lake, like a still lake with no fluctuations, and with that level of equanimity to reach for food with no emotion. And that is a completely different practice. When you break apart the mentality, materiality, when you break apart the individual intentions, and that is how you can really purify from greed.
So you're going from taking 3 hours to eat a meal to eating that same meal in 8 minutes. That must be, and what is that like? Does that feel schizophrenic sometimes when you're going from one to the other to remember to change the intention that fast when you're moving from one monastic culture to another?
I mean, as I shared, for me, this has been very, very, very rewarding, and I feel very grateful and blessed that I was introduced to those.
So it's an easy adjustment for you to go back and forth?
No, I wouldn't say it's easy. It is. I mean, it's not very difficult because of I don't take breaks. I haven't had holidays in 7 years, so to speak, holidays with the practice. Whether it's Burma and this kind of practice, or whether this is an airplane, or whether this is a Thai forest monastery, it is still continuity of the practice. Mm-hmm. The form changes, the speed changes, the object change, but the practice remains. You just develop in your heart. You see, you have to practice. There's just no way. We are just like drowning in the ocean of samsara, and the more we practice, we realize that if we don't swim, we drown. Mm-hmm. And once you get a glimpse of fresh air, a glimpse of a small raft above the surface, then you don't stop. You don't stop rowing. You don't stop swimming. You just see necessity of that. It doesn't matter if there are big waves and you have to move very roughly, like in Ajahn Chah Monastery, or the sea is very calm and you're just floating on the salty water, like at Mahasi, and you just slow down and you take like 45 minutes to get to the dining hall. It doesn't matter. The speed is a perception, and that perception is, if there is concentration and mindfulness, there is no difficulty to adjust from a moment of one practice to another.
I see. That's great answer. How about your experience as a foreign monk in these two countries? How have you been treated differently, or when you meet locals, whether they're Burmese or Thai, their approach to you, or at the monks at the monastery itself? What have you found the differences have been in these two countries in being a foreign monastic?
Yeah, again, I have very little experience in Burma because being in Panditarama, Mahasi, and even at Paok, I kind of treat this time in Burma as a retreat style. Oh. And I try to not connect with so many people. So, and because I don't speak Burmese at all, then I have very little to say. In Thailand, in Thailand also, when we stay in forest monasteries, the culture is that the abbot is taking all the load of the contact with the people. So we are kind of grateful for him to take this position, take this responsibility, and we just do our job. We take the bowl of our teacher, wash it, and we disappear. We go to our kutis. And then afternoon, there's no one there, just a group of monks. So it's kind of very nice, like when you go to a forest monastery and like you see the list, there are 50, 60 monks. But if you come apart from the mealtime, there's no one there. It's just an empty monastery. It's like in the suttas, like when the supporters came, like the laity came to visit a monastery and they see, oh wow, there's no one there. So what is happening? Like, are the monks here, or maybe they have a quarrel? And then they see, oh yeah, but everything is cleaned, everything is tidy. So perhaps they are abiding in harmony and they're practicing. But in those moments where there's a necessity to travel or arrange visas or this, or also when going to Europe and having some contact with Thai communities, it's amazing how much faith people have. Or a simple thing as simple as pintapat. It's just
alms round.
Yeah, thank you for translating.
For people who may not know.
Yes, the alms round is just, I remember when my father came the first time to Thailand when me and my brother were still monastics. And my father used to say, like, why are you going to beg for food? Come on. You were an accountant, an English teacher, a jazz musician, and you could have a career, and now you're begging for food. And he was like so sad, so sad. And then one day he said, well, okay, I go and see it. And by the time we returned to monastery, he was in tears.
Why?
Because it's so touching. You see people who have so much generosity, so much compassion. I mean, when I go alms round, and especially the first weeks, I would cry.
Yeah.
Even I restrain the eyes, etc., but you just feel that. You just feel with your whole body how sincere, how faithful those people are. And not faithful to you as a monk, but faithful to goodness, to the goodness and truth that this robe represents. And that is so powerful that immediately humbles us. Actually, the alms round is the topic in itself, is a practice in itself. I feel it's like the unwritten sutta, unwritten teaching of the Buddha. And he shared, you monks go to the village, you have to be dependent, you have to do it every single day. Even if you're an arahant, as the Buddhas called it, an arahant who would not go pintapat. So we go to the village and it immediately reminds us, okay, we are dependent on people. We need people to support us. We are not allowed to store up food. We are not allowed to cook. So we are dependent on those people. We are dependent on their kindness, generosity. And that really humbles us very deep in the heart. And it is a reminder every single day, every single household, every single spoon. On the other hand, for people who start their day waking up and think, with thoughts, we have the monks coming in an hour or two, and we have to cook fresh food for them, as this is what people do in Thailand. They don't serve the old food. They serve fresh food. So someone has to wake up at 4 or sometimes 3:30 to cook fresh rice, even if it's only rice. But it's already like such a good intention that someone wakes up where we look in Western culture, I wake up, okay, I have to go to gym, or I have to make my hairstyle, or everything starts with I. But here suddenly there are so many people who start their day with preparing food for us. And if you know the culture, it is in both countries.
Yeah.
That is immediately touching. And if you see those people, they're like after a few years I started to look at people during Pintapat to really also connect with the culture. So you see those people, they're sleepy, they're tired, they're cold sometimes, but they still do it. And some of them, they really get really touched. So that is just such a mutual, I would say, communion for us.
Yeah, so this is a meditative, transformative act that as a monastic, as a monk, because in many countries nuns don't get this opportunity, but as a monk, this is a part of your practice that many foreign meditators would not understand. So it's great to have such a description of it for those who've never worn the robes and how that affects the practice.
I mean, every time, every day when doing the alms round, I actually see it. It's so amazing that we can do it in 21st century. when reflecting where I came from, or some other foreigner monks where they came from, busy cities and everything, and suddenly you're here. And actually, I do like Pintapat Amsterdam, not only in the villages, but also doing it in Yangon. It's kind of like, or in Bangkok, that you can do it still in the, amidst the skyscrapers and traffic jams, and you go there like with your bowl. That's really, that's one of the manifestations of a deep clarity of the Buddha.
Yeah, and an observation I've had that's interesting is you look at these countries, Myanmar and Thailand. Myanmar is definitely not developed. Thailand is somewhere along the way. Ask an economist to tell you where exactly. But in other words, there's a lot of things in Thailand and a lot more in Myanmar in society. I'm a layperson living in Myanmar. There's a lot of things that don't work. It's more often that something doesn't work than it does. And when you come with that truth, that experience of living here, and then you see that they have to prepare this amount of food for this percent of the population that has to be ready exactly at this time, and it has to be offered precisely in this way, and it can't be late even by several minutes, because then you'll miss the opportunity for them to get subsistence and for you to get merit. And it's really astounding. I think a lot of people listening have had the experience of going to a non-monastic meditation center. And many times while at that center, if you're not a student, you're somehow involved in the food. I've done that more times than I can count, mostly at the Vipassana centers in the SN Goenka tradition. And you just spend a day trying to have, trying to have lunch ready to serve to 70 meditators sitting the course at 11 o'clock, where it doesn't even have to be served or offered in any way. It just has to be set out. And even if you're 5 or 10 minutes late, you could still manage. And you try to get that done and get it done in harmony. And after those 10 days, some kitchens go better than others, but it can also, it could be a little stressful. It's definitely a novel experience. And you think about, this is this sense of service and exactitude and routine is not something you give to offer for a certain period of your life, but something that you and your family and the generations before you and the generations after you are going to commit to maintaining. And you're doing this in a country where so many other things don't work. It really is truly remarkable. So when you come to Myanmar, it sounds like you're correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like your home base is kind of Thailand. You ordained there, you speak the language, you've traveled more around the country, and you're coming to Myanmar for quite extended periods, but this is more of a trip away from perhaps where you feel more settled or more comfortable. Would that be accurate?
Yes, I think it's a correct explanation.
Right. And then when you come here to Myanmar, you might stay 6 months, a year, maybe longer. What traditions are you doing here when you come on these visits?
So actually, a few days ago, me and my friends, we were doing a Dhammatutta course, the first edition of the Mahasi Dhammatutta.
And what is Dhammatutta?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Dhammatutta is... the meaning of that is either ambassador of Dhamma or the missionary.
Right.
The missionary is not it's the translation that is used, but it's not because of the nature of what Buddhist monks do, it's not really appropriate.
Well, at Mahasi specifically, this is more of a big deal for the last 50, 60 years. Mahasi particularly has been sending ambassador missionary monks, however you want to call them,
yes,
to spread the Mahasi method and outside of Myanmar, and to train teachers and whatnot. So that's at the Mahasi tradition especially, this is an important feature
exactly.
of it.
So that's what I've been doing for the past year here in Burma. So I spent a year kind of finalizing this training in Mahasi tradition in different monasteries and places. And so that was kind of a combination of the Abhidhamma studies and sutta studies, combined with the kind of refinements of the practice itself. And so that I feel as a closed chapter right now, that the curriculum of the Mahasi tradition is finished, and I feel very at ease right now to go back to Thailand as well soon.
When will you go back?
Next month.
Okay. And
Yes.
how long will you spend back in Thailand?
At the present moment, I just planned that I will stay for the next rain retreat. Afterwards, I have no plan.
Right.
So it's like 6 months ahead for sure.
Right. Another question I have about the differences between Myanmar and Thai monasteries, do you find different interpretation of some of the aspects of the Vinaya, the monastic discipline for monks?
Yes, certainly, yes. Even among the Thai forest monasteries, you can have some minor differences between one monastery of the same tradition and lineage and other.
But do you see cultural differences between things that are generally in Myanmar interpreted this way and generally in Thailand interpreted this way?
There's a very simple example of an alms bowl. In Thailand, you are to put your alms bowl on the floor because it's the most stable part, so it's not going to fall. In Burma, you put your alms bowl at the highest possible place, even if it's a small table. And this is, in Thailand, considered against the monastic tradition, against the Vinaya, because of the hatapasa, so the length of the sugata span, the length of the kind of arm from the edge of the table. Yeah, it sounds very complicated to explain, but in short, in Burma, they want to put the alms bowl as high as possible, even though there's a potential it can fall. But in Thailand, as they put it on the floor. So if I come from Thailand and to Burma and I put my alms bowl on the floor, there would be people coming and grabbing this bowl and trying to put it somewhere.
It's seen as sacred, right? So.
And then for us, being trained in Thailand, it's like, this is wrong. I have an act of wrongdoing. I have to confess if my bowl is there. So what they're doing. And so that's when we have to be culturally sensitive and just adapting.
So you just accept that?
Yes.
Yeah. From my limited experience in Thailand, I had some other observations. I mean, one is just the shaving of the head, that the Thai monks often, forest tradition at least, do it once a month. And in Myanmar, once a month is seen as not enough. If you're starting to have more and more stubble on your head, then even though strictly according to the scriptures, that's allowable, somehow it doesn't, in the cultural interpretation and practice, you need to be shaving more often.
Yeah, in Thai forest tradition, most of the places do it twice a month, a day before the
Twice a
Uposatha.
month, okay.
In the city monasteries, often it's once a month. The importance is that they do it in the same day. And again, if you do it on the other day, immediately you get admonished. Why did you do it? Why do you want to be special? Why do you not abide in accordance with the community? Whereas in Burma, you have freedom. You can shave any day you want, as long as your hair is not... And of course, the Burmese approach is more in line with the actual Vinaya. It's your business. But the Thai way, although it's not really in the Vinaya that you have to shave on the same day with all the monks, but this is part of this monastic restraint and tradition. It's yet another aspect to just surrender to the monastery rules and to your teacher and the community.
Sometimes you're surrendering to those at the expense of surrendering to your understanding of the Vinaya, correct?
Well, it's not against Vinaya that you shave together with all the monks.
It's
just, it's not necessary to do it. But if you do it, then, for example, in this forest monastery, the Ajahn would always shave his head before the meal on the day before Uposatha.
And what is Uposatha?
Oh, sorry. Uposatha is full moon or new moon day.
Yeah.
And so the Ajahn would do it before the meal. And all the other monks can do it only after the meal. And if you don't know it, and if you come there as a visitor, and if you do it before the meal, then there's just Ajahn and you, and it's like immediately it's like, why did you do it? Why you don't flow with the community? So it's not like you have to do this way, and this attitude that you have to do this way is wrong. It's wrong understanding. But you voluntarily surrender to community to see whether you have any reactions and any, again, checking your heart. And if you don't like it, why you don't like it? If you like it, why you like it? And if you're indifferent, why are you indifferent?
And of course, there's the eyebrows too.
Sure.
Yeah, so you shave your eyebrows there, you don't here.
Yes.
Yeah, and why is that different?
There's just a lot of cultural stories, actually. That's irrelevant.
Yeah. And how about chocolate, butter, sesame seeds, sunflower seeds? That's allowable in the Thai forest tradition, right?
Yes. Again, those are things that, I find a bit irrelevant. They're just whatever is... these are basically just monastery rules, and we just accept that.
Right. It's interesting seeing how the monastic code, the Vinaya that the Buddha laid down, is carried over throughout the centuries that followed, and how cultural institutions wrap around them. I've talked about this with a number of friends over the years, and we've mentioned how there can be a certain part of Vinaya which is very clear, and yet it's not followed by the cultural influence has it be minimized or not followed or interpreted a creative way, which is looser and more relaxed. And yet there can also be the alternate example of a cultural rule which has become more formalized, more strict than actually what's in the Vinaya, and is requiring, if not a written rule, an unwritten rule of monks following a more strenuous practice. And so there's some parts of the Vinaya that are very clear that in trying to practice, the culture doesn't give preference and actually make it harder to follow it, while there's other things that you are following the letter of the Vinaya, but by cultural standards, you're being careless or not a good monk. And so this thing can go both ways depending on how the cultural tendencies have come and looked at it.
Yeah, well, I tend to see Vinaya as kind of, the Buddha created it for us monks as our reflection. And I see it's possible easily. I've been able to keep the Vinaya in Thailand, in Burma, and even when going back to Europe. I remember in the first Wasa, me, my brother, and Ashin Sarana were the only 3 monks eating one meal and not using money, and really staying with those simple rules and suggestions. So we kind of had a Vinaya club.
Where was this?
This was at Shuomin.
Shuomin, right?
Yes. Yeah. But so I see it as a kind of, it's a tool for us to reflect, to see, to really check. And I tend to not really involve what others are doing. I don't, especially, being sometimes in Burma, sometimes in Thailand, I don't judge other monks. I don't try to convince someone that this is better or not. Otherwise, even with the simple example of the alms bowl, I'll just exhaust myself. I just see, can I accept that this is also correct? I'm in a different country. If I try to be a Thai monk in Burma, I will just suffer and I will make others suffer. Can I just, if that is something minor as putting the bowl here or there, if it's still in align with the intention of that rule, it's fine. And also because there are different things, as you said, they're highlighted in this culture and in this culture, monastic, and staying here and seeing that some things have blind spots. Here in Burmese monastic culture, I just check, do I have judgments? If I have judgments, I suffer. It doesn't matter if what they're doing is right or wrong. And that's the fundamentals of the practice. Like you said with the digging the hole. If I get angry, I suffer. If I don't get angry, well, that's no problem. It's just the fundamentals of the practice. Do I want to correct everyone and teach everyone, or do I just want to practice for liberation? Here in this moment, can I abandon this perception, this judgment, and see if my own actions are correct, my own actions are good? And that is a very basic, very basic, very difficult to do, honestly, very. That is, again, a simple statement, don't judge others. But to do it, it comes with all those tools. You have to have a lot of discipline, self-discipline. You have to have mindfulness. You have to know your feelings. You have to know your emotions. You have to know how painful it is to judge someone. You have to feel and understand the pain of anger to finally decide, no, I will not take this hot, burning rod again. It's just sorry. I prefer to be an invisible monk in the monastery rather than trying to fight with everyone. And that is really liberating to finally you see, well, do I prefer to have a good heart or good vinaya?
Yeah. And I guess that's one of the advantages of moving back and forth between these drastically different monastic cultures. It's interesting. They're both following a Theravadan practice, and the core principles are identical in both, but the way they're carried out is really quite different when you have that experience. And I think if you're just in one of those cultures, then you can flow with the sense of, the unquestioned assumption of righteousness and correctness that everyone around you is supporting, that never has you look at something different. It's kind of like if you're living in monastic practice aside, if you're living in one country and you grow up with that culture and believing the same set of unexamined beliefs, and then you go to a very different country and you're a very different culture and you're confronted with things that you never really considered one way or the other because everyone was following one way. As you move from one monastic cultural environment to another, there's this flow of unexamined assumptions that are part and parcel of what the practice should be, this and only this. And then when you're in that novel environment, they have a different set of overlapped onto the way the practice should be, which sometimes can be in direct conflict. And you're the fish swimming from one to the other that has to, that could feel like an outsider, but you're having to make yourself comfortable internally and externally with this vastly different culture that actually has the same internal set of motivations and objectives.
Yeah, I just need to say sadhu and applaud you for this reflection.
Is that correct? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
It's very good and it's very deep, actually. Yes, it's very good. Yeah.
It also makes me think, as I think about this analogy, the word that keeps coming to mind is disruption. So you're intentionally, consistently disrupting your life. When you're in one Thai forest monastic environment, you're settled in to the codes and conducts and unwritten rules and assumptions and everything else. When you remove yourself that to go into a different environment, you're disrupting everything. Even if it's a Theravadan Buddhist and monastic environment, you're still disrupting a lot of those unwritten codes, and then through that disruption, through that confrontation, having to do some kind of deep examination, some deep internal examination of where this is coming from and another way to approach the Dhamma, whether it's fast eating or slow eating and all the other things that go into it. Some of these unquestioned assumptions of rules that are not spoken it's not like it's just like, oh, this is what they do here, that's what they do here. Now I see that, now I'll adapt myself. It's not like that. Sometimes it can take days, weeks, months, even years to even pick apart what these unexamined assumptions are. I know that very different from you, coming from many Goenka courses, Vipassana courses, and having one set of structure that I was comfortable in, and then seeing the way that Burmese Buddhist monasteries ran, and the multi-year-long process of unpacking these assumptions and protocols in the two environments. that was not evident. There was some kind of disruption, some kind of confrontation inside taking place, but it takes a long time to work out exactly what it is.
Yes. So my only comment is, it's not that staying in one tradition, one place is wrong.
Right.
Because if someone is doing it correctly, if someone is really mindful, that he should be able to pick up his attachments to those tools. Mm-hmm. Let's say attachment to his teacher, attachment to his monastery, attachment to Divinia, attachment to eating fast, attachment to attachment to eating slow, attachment to Burmese robes, attachment to all those things need to be let go of. It's like the Buddha shared with the simile of the snake. That if you want to catch the snake and if you grasp it at the tail, it's going to bite you. But if you take a stick and you catch him by his hat, then he's not going to bite you. So in the same way, the Buddha said that his Dhamma needs to be taken with wisdom. Mm-hmm. And he shared even the Dhamma has to be let go of, let alone the non-Dhamma. What it means, it doesn't mean that you don't practice Vinaya, that you don't care about your teacher, you don't care about your tradition, etc. But you flow with it like you flow with it without getting stuck, without getting entangled. And that is tricky. Honestly, it is very tricky. That's what creates a distinction of someone who's really practiced and usually practiced for lifetimes. Mm-hmm. That he's able to come to monastery, take those valuable tools, and whether he's staying in one monastery or 2 or 3 or 30, but he is applying this basically non-attachment. This is our advantage of being Westerners. And you, as a layperson, probably experience that. You come from States, you come to Burma, and suddenly you start to see your American conditionings.
Yeah,
and it's
sure.
The longer you stay, the more you start to see, oh yeah, how stupid it is. Sorry, but it's for every culture.
Sure.
I don't feel Polish anymore.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, last week we were speaking with monks from Argentina, from Germany, from America, from some Chinese, Eastern European, and suddenly I just realized, we spent a year together. I forgot, where are you from? Because we come together, we practice together. When we share Dhamma, we share in English, and I don't really see you as different nationalities, as I don't see my heart as different nationality. And when I go back home, I suddenly see, oh wow, all that conditioning, and I don't have this kind of Polish conditioning in my heart. I don't feel Polish. I don't have those habits related to being Polish because of staying here and really absorbing the Dhamma in the heart. And it's the same with monastic culture. If we have to learn, but we develop the qualities, we develop parami, we develop mindfulness, concentration, ultimately for the fact to be able to disentangle everything, disentangle every attachment. And it is imperative at a certain level of practice to abandon your attachment to your family, attachment to your friends, attachment to your teacher, attachment to your monastery, attachment to your country, attachment to the country of your ordination. You have to let everything go. But what does it mean? The more I can let go of attachment to my parents, the better our relationship is, because I don't see gain from them. I see them not because I have to see them. I don't. I see them because of the natural flow of gratitude and compassion. And the less of grasping from them there is, the more pure the relationship is, the less grasping and the less pushing. Suddenly that's what I shared earlier, that our relationship with parents is better because of the practice, because of all this, monastic exchanges and all this cross-cultural, which is cross-checking to disentangle any and all tangles in the heart. I just brought the parents' example so we don't get, again, saying, okay, you have to let go of your family, so I will not speak with them anymore.
Right.
That is a very common Western approach.
Yeah,
Like,
all or nothing, black or white.
Yes, I will never speak with my parents because I will be, I still.
Yeah, I am detached. I am detached.
Exactly. But what did the Buddha do? The Buddha developed the practice, of course, to much deeper degree. But why did the Buddha develop the practice? He was staying in the palace. He looked at his wife and he asked himself, what does he has to offer to her? He had a past life connection with her, a lot of lifetimes. So certainly there was a very strong emotion. It wasn't that he didn't care about her, but what does he has to offer? With the seeing the aging, sickness, and death, he realized that he cannot offer stability to her wife. He cannot offer stability to her child. And when he left the palace, it was not a selfish, I want to be free, but he wanted to seek for the medicine for all the sentient beings. And he had wisdom after awakening that he knew, no, I will not go back home. I will seek for those who have little dust in their eyes, those who are struggling, who are striving, who are really begging for a drop of water in the desert, who are ready to receive this water, drink it, and who will accept it to their heart. But after the Sangha was established, he did go back home. He did help his wife. He did help his son. He helped his father. And he also helped his mother in the heavenly realm. So we know the Buddha was not a cold-hearted person who said, no, I don't care about my family. Contrary, he put all his effort. He spent days and days in the last days of his father's life to bring him to arahantship, really caring for him in sickness. It must have been very difficult, very, very difficult. And what we know from the scriptures that the last moments he was successful, and his father finally understood how he did not understand why the Buddha left the palace. Finally, with this realization of clarity, he could see what the depth of what his son was doing for all the sentient beings. So the detachment is detachment from everything.
Yeah.
Including detachment.
Yeah. Well said. One final question to wrap up. Tell us about the favorite place that you've meditated at before.
Oh, that's a very, very easy question. The favorite place is in the heart. Unquestionably. It really doesn't matter. If one practices samatha meditation, it's very easy. You just switch off the 5 senses and abide in bliss of concentration. And you can do it anywhere. You can do it at the airport. You can do it on the airplane. You can do it in the deep forests. You can do it in the beautiful scenery. You can do it in the slums. And with Vipassana is actually likewise. It's even more fun because Vipassana can be developed while moving. You can separate the mind and body while walking around, while doing your daily chores, and you can maintain the depth, the stability, while doing normal things. You can do the daily chores with mindfulness and concentration, staying at the heart and taking the stability of the heart as your primary focus and objective, taking the heart as a measure. And when the heart does not move, it really doesn't matter. There is no place anymore. There is no Thailand, Burma, there is no monastery, and there's no monk. And if there's no place and there's no monk, how can be there anything?
Thank you very much. Any final things you want to add?
No, unless you have any other question.
No, thank you so much for coming, hearing about the intensive schedule you keep, that you've kept for this amount of time, for you to devote an afternoon to coming here and making time for this conversation, for sharing your words and experience, not just to me alone in this room at the moment where we are now, but when this comes out to the hundreds and likely thousands that will end up listening to it and be inspired by the path that your journey has taken, and sharing these very private and personal things that you've developed over the course of your spiritual development. I think that'll be very refreshing and helpful for people in different situations to see how they can apply for their own life and decisions.
Yeah, so the last thought would be, I shared about those two monks and that I met just before the ordination, two forest monks. And I saw their practice and I thought, it's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And I see not only it's possible, but every being, the Dhamma is universal. Everyone the more someone is open, the more one is opening his heart to this Dhamma of the morality, concentration, insight, in general, to the whole practice, the more one is open, the more easy it is. For one who's really open and devoted to this practice, there is no impossible. It is just a continuous work to overcome any obstacle, any challenge, anything.
Mm.
Because this Dhamma is to transcend the whole world. So if I were to give any message, is really trust in the Dhamma. Take refuge in the Dhamma. And if you do it, you just do it. You just continue doing it. And you reap what you sow. The more you apply sincerity, humility, and effort, the more freedom you find in your heart. And that's about it. It's very simple, very straightforward. And as they say, to be experienced personally by the wise.
Thank you very much, and best wishes with your rest of your stay in Myanmar and your upcoming journey.
Thank you. And I'm very grateful to you for what you're doing, for both this project of podcast, and also all the projects that you do to support the Dhamma and to make the Dhamma available to the English speakers and Westerners.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be honest, not only is asking for donations my least favorite thing in the world to do, I find it pretty uncomfortable as well. Yet, it is an unavoidable but necessary task in order to ensure that our platform can continue to bring you stories from post-coup Myanmar. And unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that there is a basic minimum cost to keep our engine humming. So please allow me to take a moment for that least favorite and uncomfortable thing to do, and ask sincerely for your generosity in supporting our mission. If you found value in today's show and think others might as well, we ask that you take a moment to consider supporting our work. Thank you for taking the time to hear our spiel. And with that, it's off to work on the next episode. If you would like to join in our mission to support those in Myanmar who are being impacted by the military coup, we welcome your contribution in any form, currency, or transfer method. Your donation will go on to support a wide range of humanitarian and media missions, aiding those local communities who need it most. Donations are directed to such causes as the Civil Disobedience Movement, CDM, families of deceased victims, internally displaced person IDP camps, food for impoverished communities, military defection campaigns, undercover journalists, refugee camps, monasteries and nunneries, education initiatives, the purchasing of protective equipment and medical supplies, COVID relief, and more. We also make sure that our donation fund supports a diverse range of religious and ethnic groups across the country. We invite you to visit our website to learn more about past projects as well as upcoming needs. You can give a general donation or earmark your contribution to a specific activity or project you would like to support, perhaps even something you heard about in this very episode. All of this humanitarian work is carried out by our nonprofit mission, Better Burma. Any donation you give on our Insight Myanmar website is directed towards this fund. Alternatively, you can also visit the Better Burma website, betterburma.org, and donate directly there. In either case, your donation goes to the same cause in both websites except credit card. You can also give via PayPal by going to paypal.me/betterburma. Additionally, we can take donations through Patreon, Venmo, GoFundMe, and Cash App. Simply search Better Burma on each platform and you'll find our account. You can also visit either website for specific links to these respective accounts or email us at info@betterburma.org. That's Better Burma, one word, spelled BETTERBURMA.org. If you would like to give it another way, please contact us. We also invite you to check out our range of handicrafts that are sourced from vulnerable artisan communities across Myanmar, available at alokacrafts.com. Any purchase will not only support these artisan communities, but also our nonprofit's wider mission. That's Aloka Crafts, spelled ALOKACRAFTS, one word, alokacrafts.com. Thank you so much for your kind consideration and support.